Supertramp 101. Okay. I toured in Australia with Spy Matthews as production manager. Spy, really, really good guy. I'm back at Tasco. I get a phone call. It's Spy Matthews. Hey, I'm out with Supertramp. Okay. He said, these guys have bought their own arena sound system, and they're not really proficient in handling a union crew. They've basically been in theaters prior to this. So can I come on board? Now, I'd got background. I'd worked with Tasco with flown PAs, and so I was happy to go out there. When we finished the Breakfast in America tour in 1979, the band were now talking about 2 or 3 year break. So I'm looking at this, I'm going, wow, what's the deal here? Well, they've got their own sound system. So I went to management, said, how about if I start a production company and your guys can be partners and you don't pay retainers, you don't pay for warehousing, you don't pay for equipment insurance. What's your thoughts? And they went for it.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Geese of Gear, and happy to have you here today. We got a good one for you, so I'll tell you more about that in a minute. A couple of things. So one, I've been having some conversations with some of the large companies in Europe right now, and I don't know if it's because of tariffs, like in the US as well. We're seeing used gear market really picking up, like in a big way. It's getting kind of crazy, actually. And so what can that be attributed to? Again, I think it's got something to do with tariffs. In particular, some of the items that we're seeing getting really hot, audio gear of all kinds, lots of line array, certainly some lighting fixtures as well, like certain lines I think are getting really hot right now. And it's mostly Chinese product, I guess, on the lighting stuff. But yeah, it's just something is happening. And I don't know if it's because, like here in the US, maybe companies can't afford new gear right now because it is Chinese and it's got 100 and something % tariffs on it. Which, if you're buying used gear from within the United States, you're not paying any tariffs. So if you're buying used Chinese gear from outside the United States, you pay tariffs just like you do on new. So yeah, it's an interesting market right now. A couple other things where there's shortages of certain products. A lot of the digital audio consoles, for example, in Europe right now are in short supply for summer. So people are just scavenging for them right now, and we're selling a lot of used consoles in Europe. And so yeah, the market's picking up. Happy for me because it's been weird. And in AI, I think I already mentioned to you that we're building a new platform right now on top of GearSource. And I've been having some incredible meetings. We have an AI developer and a team developing some stuff for us right now on that platform. And I will tell you, it's been really, really educational and really interesting what you can do with AI. It really is like, wait a sec, we don't have to do that. We can have AI do that. So there is a lot of stuff that we're building that our users are not going to have to do anymore. Some complicated things that they've had to do in the past and some really simple things that they'll just go, oh, this is much easier now. And so we're really looking forward to showing that to our customers very soon. That's GearSource, of course. And I do believe we are going to quickly change the way that people are looking for gear. So I'm confident about that. Pretty excited about today's guest. I've been trying to get him on for a while, waiting for him to be ready. He's finally ready. And so I have Smoother, founder and CFO at Delicate Productions, but so much more of a story around Smoother. Chris Smoother Smyth is his name. And Smoother is the founder and CFO of Delicate Productions. With over 45 years of live event production, his career began in the early 70s with a spontaneous leap onto a U.S. tour, eventually working with artists like Genesis, Leo Sayer, Patti Smith, and Kiss. A pivotal tour with Supertramp led to the founding of Delicate in 1980, whose first show was The Clash at the Santa Monica Civic. Smoother has since supported acts like Dire Straits, INXS, Tool, and Yanni, and built long-lasting relationships across the industry. Known for his calm leadership and commitment to learning by doing, he remains a respected figure in the field. I still don't consider this a job, he says, just a passion that became a legacy. And he really is a legacy, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. I hope you like it. Here you go. Smoother Smyth. Smoother, good morning, good afternoon. I don't know where you are, so good evening. Where are you? Are you in California?
Los Angeles.
Okay.
I've actually decided the quietest place for me is my office at Delicate. Yeah. So
nobody bothers you there.
Well, shit, the wife. I need a cup of coffee. I need to get to the drugstore. I need, it's like, yes, darling. Yeah.
The honey-do list.
Yeah. I get my piece. I get left alone here pretty much. So,
So you were just mentioning Marshall, because Marshall, God bless him, he convinced you to come and do the podcast, and or at least connected you to Sarah to come and do the podcast.
Yeah.
And so we appreciate you, Marshall, because I know you'll. Today's episode is brought to you by Elation Lighting. Elation is a privately held corporation established in 1992 and headquartered in Los Angeles. All products are developed and engineered in the USA, with sales and support office locations in the US, Mexico, and Europe, and distribution via a worldwide dealer network.
What defines excellence? Is it found in form, function, or sheer strength? Perhaps it calls for more. It's unconventional, searching beyond what can be seen. It moves with grace, intent, and versatility, while others are content to remain unchanged. A true hero rejects the ordinary and embraces transformation. They ascend and become the paragon.
Listen, but then we got into fishing.
Yeah. We were over here in America, and I knew that Marshall and his partner Colin were big on fishing. So I bought a bass boat, and then I approached him and said, "Hey man, we got to go do it." And he was reluctant, and I couldn't quite figure it out. They did tournaments. I mean, they were the Bass Kings. I was over in England, and a couple of my friends said, "Hey, look, we're going to do some fly fishing." I was a bit confused. They said, "Well, we'll show you how it's done." So that went well. I came back to America, and I mentioned it to Marshall. I said, "Oh, I did some fly fishing. Fly fishing? You're into fly fishing? Let's go." He was just a fly fishing snob.
Really?
I thought, he'd given up the bass thing, and he was into the fly fishing. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah, but he made up for it. I think he bought me my first rod for my birthday.
That's nice.
And we're immediately off on trips, and I loved it. I loved getting out there. It's if you put a rod in my hand, I can walk for miles and miles. We don't take a sort of fishing box or anything. Everything's on us. We're mobile. So we wade up streams, we climb over rocks, we skirt around mountains. I mean, we just keep going.
That's amazing.
It's a rush just being there. So,
you're not like nuts about it where you do all your own flies and stuff, though, right?
That came along.
Oh, you do?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
There's different aspects to fly fishing. There's some who are all about the casting, and they actually have casting clubs. Not that you beat people with the clubs you have membership to. And then there's the fly tying. there's the rod building. I mean, there's
Yeah.
all sorts of deviations to this sport. We'll fish a puddle, okay? It's the challenge. It's there. We'll fish ponds. We'll fish the surf down on the beach. We'll go deep sea fishing. We're everywhere and anywhere. We're lakes. We're on float tubes. You name it. We're careening down the river in a drift boat. So fly fishing's not just sitting on a lazy bank in idyllic England. It can be. You put yourself in danger in many situations.
Yeah. Do you do the Florida trips with them too?
No. Going back. No, I think about 12, 13 years ago, I did the first one down to Ascension Bay, which is addictive. That's incredible down there. That's sort of up from Belize and down from Cancun.
That's nice.
The fly fishing is more than a sport. And then there's the camaraderie.
Yeah.
It's good.
We'll have to get you guys up. I have a house in Banff in Canada, and we'll have to get you up there someday because some of the fly fishing up there in the Bow River and stuff is pretty incredible, supposedly. I don't do it, but I know people who are guides and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I've fished Banff Lake.
Really?
Yeah, I was on tour with Supertramp. We were going to fly from Moncton to Fredericton, and there was a death threat on one of the keyboard players. They cancelled the show, and the next one was Calgary. So we got to Calgary.
That's where I'm from.
We had days off there, and there was a van for us to run around in. So I grabbed that, went to a store, bought a fly fishing rod, a frying pan, some vegetables. A couple of the guys caught me heading out and said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going into the mountains. I'm going fishing for a few days."
That's amazing.
We're staying at the Four Seasons, Quatre Saisons up in France there. And I gave up that room and we slept in the van and fished up in Banff. And
that's amazing. That's awesome.
Terrific.
Yeah. I mean, the fishing's supposed to be incredible, but I don't know because I'm not really a fisherman. I'm too A-type or whatever you want to call it. I can't relax. I can't go, okay, let's just slow everything down and wade through the water and do this little thing into I can't do it.
It's here's your rod, here's your flies, follow Marshall. And after about 4 hours of constantly wading and walking and hiking and falling, it can be extremely physical.
Do you ever catch anything?
Because we catch everything and anything.
I never see fly fishermen catch anything. Like, if you go to a dock in Florida or if you just watch people in a fishing boat or whatever, you're going to see people catching fish. And whenever I see people fly fishing, even by my house in Banff, I never see anybody catch anything.
Well, it's I don't want to get into it too much, but 95% of the time they're on the bottom. So forget putting something on the top. And in the colder months, they don't move to pick anything up. So and then you've got to match the hatch. They key in on a certain insect at a certain stage of the hatch, and you've got to replicate it because they're definitely focused on that one particular fly at that particular stage. And so when you figure that out, then you're off and running.
That's wild. I don't know anything about it. There's a guy who lives next to me where I have my house who is a former professional football player called Anderson. What's his first name? I forget his first name. But he's like the winningest or the highest points anyone ever got in the NFL. Maybe it's different now because of Tom Brady or something. But he started a fishing guide business. He found this area and just went, this is God's country. It's the best place in the world. And he moved in. He had lived all over the world and stuff, but he decided this was it. And he was a big time fly fisherman and then started a guide business. And now I think he just guides for his friends and stuff. He doesn't do it as a business or anything.
One of the things that draws you to fly fishing is you have to replicate the fly. You're not putting a worm on, you're putting a fly on there. We call it a fly, but it may be an emerger, something that would typically live under a rock at the bottom of the river.
Yeah.
So you're going to tie that, replicate it. Now you're going to fool the fish. If you can fool him into taking the fly that you tied to replicate that which he is eating at that time, then that's an achievement. And that's kind of our goal. So there's a lot of searching and a lot of effort.
Well, you got to understand what kind of flies they're eating there, I guess, right? In whatever area you're in. Yeah.
So
and try and replicate.
Kick some rocks with a little seine net and see what goes into it, or look up in the shrubbery and see what's climbed out of the water that's about like back on the water with lay eggs. This is about fly fishing.
Yeah, that's wild. That is wild. This episode is brought to you by Mainlight, your go-to dry hire rental provider, bringing you the latest in lighting and stage equipment, from moving lights and control consoles to truss, LEDs, and rugged IP65 rated fixtures built for outdoor venues. Mainlight have everything you need to make your production shine. Whether it be a small theater venue, an outdoor stadium event, or a TV production set, Mainlight is the partner you trust with the gear you want. In addition to rentals, Mainlight offer new equipment sales from all of your favorite brands, as well as used sales on equipment pulled directly from their rental inventory. All used equipment is meticulously maintained and backed by a 60-day depot warranty, ensuring you can have confidence in every purchase. With 4 strategically located facilities in Teterboro, New Jersey, Wilmington, Delaware, Nashville, Tennessee, and Las Vegas, you get the reach of a national company with the personalized service of a local provider. Visit mainlight.com today to explore their rental options and even request a direct quote through their easy-to-use online ordering platform. So, you mentioned the Supertramp tour that you went to Banff. Do you remember which tour it was?
That was in
Which tour?
79.
So would that have been
83.
Crime of the Century?
83.
Were you with them before that, or is that when you started? Were you with them before that?
79. I joined the Breakfast in America tour.
Okay, yeah, I think the one before that, which
70.
was like Crime of the Century, I think, in 76 or...
And the Quietest Moments, 77. Yeah, I didn't.
One of those, but I think it was the Crime of the Century tour, if I remember correctly, was actually my first. It was, I think, my second concert, but it was my first big one because it was in the terrible stadium in Calgary, McMahon Stadium, and I'll never forget it. It was a crazy, crazy night. I think it was Atlanta Rhythm Section who opened for them, and it rained like crazy the whole time, and it was just a crazy night. It was a fun night, but I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And I became a massive Supertramp fan for a long time because of that show. So yeah, it was cool. Well, I want to go back even further than that. Because you have such a remarkable, interesting career, and obviously Supertramp played a big role in it. So we'll talk about that if that's okay. But you know, even before that, I think you started, like, you were one of the really early guys in our industry. You started in the early 70s, right? When we were just becoming an industry.
Yeah, I started in 72. And I thought I was a bit of a late entry, actually, because prior to 72, I'd done 3 years in the Air Force, 4.5 years with Pan American at Heathrow Airport.
Wow.
And then I dropped out. I'll give you a background on that if you like.
Yeah, please.
Paul Newman, Numo, as we know him, he's currently with Clare Brothers, but he was in the RAF with me, and he came down to London. He got a job down in the city. He dropped out, and the next thing he was working for bands. We were always close and good friends, and he was working for a band called Flash, Peter Banks from Yes, and a 4-piece, and they were doing well in America, and he said they were going back over there, and I said, who's your road crew? And he says, just me you're going to pick up a drum roadie in New York. And so I'm up with Pan Am, right? I'm thinking, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer here. Okay, Paul, what if I get a ticket from Pan Am and I'm your roadie? And he agreed. He kind of had to agree because the drummer was sleeping on my sofa. So I got my ticket from Pan Am, nice and cheap, and then I gave notice, and my first gig was September 1972, Fairleigh Dickinson College, New Jersey.
Wow.
And, I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no background in. Hey, if I knew the drummer, he's sleeping on my sofa, so hey,
Yeah.
show me how this goes, a bit of gaffer tape, mark a carpet, and away you go.
Yeah.
So I was.
So that was your first gig. You were a drum tech
Yeah.
for
No,
Flash.
drum roadie.
What's the difference?
We did. The difference is that elevated. The roadie became sort of like a circus name. Drum tech. Yeah. Probably get another 500 a week for being a tech.
But is the difference just the name, or is it a different type of work?
Exactly that.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That's so
you're
funny.
A tech and you're figuring out how to put the cymbals on. I'm not sure.
Well, maybe if you're a tech, you can actually tune one of the drums, know?
Yeah.
You're allowed to tune it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So that was my early start.
And you did the whole tour, the whole U.S. tour with them?
Yeah. We started with 17 shows back to back, and we flew every day. This was an incredible trial by fire. With 13 pieces of musical instruments. And we convinced the airline people that this was the band's baggage, when in fact the band hadn't arrived. It was their backline's gear.
Oh my
amps and
God.
drums and guitars and stuff. So we had to get that on the airplane. We'd have a rent-a-truck, and we'd often pull around to the gate, round the perimeter track, to the gate, and offload the gear next to the plane. That was all done. Numo did that. He used $20 bills
Those usually work, right?
We pulled that off 17 in a row. It was crazy.
That's hilarious.
But I loved every minute.
Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing way to start, just like toss you right in there, right? And the gig prior to it was sort of a corporate gig.
Yeah, we were opening for the James Gang, Quicksilver Messenger Service, Steve Miller. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I was big on music. Being there was just unbelievable.
So you were hooked?
I got hooked. I was in the Air Force, and I did night shifts. This is 1967, and the BBC didn't play records. The musicians' union dictated that they had to have live musicians doing cover certain songs and such.
Interesting.
So they play maybe one single every hour. One guy had a feature in his show. It was called The Daily Double. And they played, within that hour, they played 2 records. So I'm working night shift, and I'm able to tune in to the pirate radio ships.
Yeah.
And this is 1967. This is the summer of love. And I'm listening to the Doors, Love, Mothers of Invention, just all this great music. And that I was caught. Next thing, I'm off down to London to these all-night shows and getting into the music big time. Trouble was, I got back to base, and I'd find, my locker had been opened, and this suit had gone missing, and
God.
I was in there with 11 other guys, and they're all drinkers, so writing was on the wall. I eventually got out of there and managed to get a job with Pan American down in London. But I stayed close to the music scene. Went to Ronnie Scott's every Wednesday to try and broaden my mind. There was a jazz club. Went there one Wednesday. Didn't know who I was going to see, and it was Eric Burdon and War. And they were dynamic. And then Eric says, "Hey, Jimmy, come on up." So Jimi Hendrix comes up, and he's playing with the band.
Jesus.
And it was electrifying. In fact, Eric Burdon sat next to me at the front row, and he actually kicked the little table over. He was just digging it so much. That was on a Wednesday night. On Thursday night, Jimi Hendrix dies.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So sad. So sad. And I can't believe how many people say they were at that concert when it wouldn't hold more than 200 people.
Wow. That is incredible.
So I was always trying to check out different music, different venues, different styles, because we weren't all focused on one thing. The top of the pops, would have the Singing Postman at number 1, Pink Floyd at number 2. So we were very open to all kinds of genres of music.
Well, I mean, what a time to be in England, with that massive explosion of music coming and the Beatles and obviously Led Zeppelin shortly after and all of that stuff. It was just wild.
Yeah, it was a good place to be, London, in the late 60s. Saw Led Zeppelin in a pub, Seven Sisters Road in London.
No.
That was communication break there.
Oh, my goodness.
They were electric. The writing was on the wall right away with them.
Yeah. Have you seen the new movie about them, the documentary?
No, I never get time for that sort of thing.
It's quite good. It's quite good. I think it might even be on streaming on TV now or something, but it's quite good. It's just a lot of early stuff and them telling stories, and it's pretty cool. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I tell you what, just in my drawer I keep my diaries. This is 1975. This is
wow.
50 years ago. And I look it up, and I was in Medford, Oregon, opening for, I was with Leo Sayer, Golden Earring.
Wow.
At the Armory in Medford, And,
so you've kept a diary your entire career?
Sorry?
You've kept diaries your entire career?
Yeah, I did, all through the
That's
70s.
incredible.
Yeah,
that is incredible.
Because we didn't have itineraries. So you had to know where you were going. You had cash. You didn't have a credit card. You didn't have a phone. So you put in your diary where you had to be on what day. You might have a phone number for the venue. You might not. And you'd turn up and do your show, And then the tour manager would pick up the cash and run off with the band.
So great.
But what was nice about that was, when, say, you finish in the Midwest somewhere, and your next show is Lake Charles, Louisiana, down on the coast down there, Gulf Coast, and it's up to you how you get there. You've got 2 days to get there, and so you figure out where you want to go en route. Do I want to swing into Memphis? Do I want to stay in Nashville? For me, being English and coming up and living in a small island, driving across America was breathtaking. Canada would have been so breathtaking had the cities been a little closer to each other.
That's true. There's no quick trips in Canada.
No. We've always gone left to right on Canada. You always started off in Vancouver. If you were unlucky, you ended up in Lethbridge. And you kind of
Jesus,
snake
Lethbridge.
your way up to Edmonton, down to Calgary, and then across Regina and such. Thunder Bay.
It's interesting because Calgary used to be like the place in sort of the central provinces to go to for bands, but over the years, the building there, the Saddle Dome, got a little long in the tooth, and you couldn't hold the weight on the ceiling with all these new LED screens and heavy line array systems and stuff. When everything started flying, they started losing shows because bands couldn't bring their rig there. They just couldn't get it, approved by the engineers or whatever. The weight was just too much. And so bands started skipping Calgary and going to Edmonton because they had a newer building with better specs. And it's just weird because bands never used to go to Edmonton. They'd go to Calgary instead. And now it's the opposite, sort of. But they're building a new building now.
Yeah, talking Canada, I was surprised how many bands the music broke in Canada first before the US. Supertramp was a good example. But when I started Delicate, we were doing tours in Canada and next to no dates in the US. The bands, I don't know if you go back as far as, let's see, Split Ends.
Of course, yeah.
Forerunner to Crowded House. Split Ends were big up in Canada.
Didn't they do that song, I don't know, but sometimes I... Is that them?
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
Men
them.
at Work was another Canada one. Band called Angel City.
I remember them.
First.
Yeah, I know all those bands.
Men at Work, Canada first.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Christa Berg, Canada only. Just kidding.
Didn't know that either. Yeah. Lady in Red.
Yeah. Canada. And in the US, Cleveland was the mecca. Cleveland was, it didn't matter who you were with, Cleveland was on the itinerary.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was KMMS or something, the Kid radio station. Great promotion tool. I think he was responsible for a lot of that large market share they had.
Isn't the music business so different today? Like how bands broke back then compared to how they break now. And it was really, like I was talking with Gil Moore from Triumph. The drummer in Triumph is a friend of mine. He has a sound and lighting company in Canada, Metalworks. And I was talking to him about it, and he told me the whole story of how Triumph broke. I think it was a small market Texas radio station that really was instrumental in breaking Triumph in the United States. And it's just totally different now.
Well, the big difference now is we don't have records, so we don't have record companies, so we don't have record company funds to back a tour.
Or to pay off radio DJs.
And that covered our budgets for sound and lights. With record company support, and things are very different now. Yeah, you're not going to live off your royalties so much as you got to get out there and perform. That's good for us, but I miss those. The variables there was record company support, and there were so many theaters. We'd do theater tours, sound and lights, one maybe two trucks, and it was incredibly good fun because you were playing venues downtown. So when you stepped out at lunchtime, you could nip next door into the pharmacy or across the street to the sushi bar. You felt you were in the city. Now you're in a bus. You pull up at the arena. If you got a day off, they put you in a hotel where two interstates cross each other just close to the arena. You don't see it downtown. You're just seeing concrete all the time. And I loved touring. I loved all these cities with the theaters right smack in the middle of the city. That doesn't happen for us production companies anymore. It's in-house sound, lights. Big difference. We had a lot of fun then, and it was much more intimate because you're also closer to the band. I'm not going to be too nostalgic. All this change had to come about.
Yeah. Well, everything evolves, of course.
Yeah. There's the difference with touring now and what it was is chalk and cheese. Cheese. Yeah. And in fact, when you think back, the arenas, right? The arenas came out of the basketball and ice skating leagues. And when the arenas came about, then it was like, well, we want to put a concert here, but we didn't really have the technology. Yeah, we didn't have the sound and lighting we had now.
Yeah.
It was started off very primitive. But there was something necessity, something of invention, mother of invention. I don't know, but I think I had something to play with it. So it was interesting for me, who started in '72 when sound systems were so crude, looking back, and how they developed and the people who developed them. Hats off to them. Those cottage industries just absolutely grew out of nothing.
I love that part of our business, though. Like, I love that, people were kind of going back to their shop or their garage or whatever it was, and they were, I got to build a bigger box, and they would just build a bigger box and put two 15-inch speakers in it. And then they'd go, well, it's still not loud enough. We need more bass. They'd put two 18-inch speakers in it, and it was just very primitive and very just need-driven, like, oh, we need it louder. It's a bigger venue. Let's just stack a few more boxes on each side,
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We got to say, hats off to Claire Brothers. They had their S4 early in the game.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly slick. That was a design that held up for such a long time. That was a really good example of a clean PA, and it was more about number of boxes. Very, very well put together.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of those developments.
I want to get into that a little bit here too, because you've been, in the lighting business. For me, I'm 60 now, but I've seen the sort of growth from, just Parcan rigs to, Verilight, very early stage Verilights to, hey, there's these IntelliBeam things that are available to, every stage of that. And I worked in the moving light business for a lot of my career. But you've done that like since the beginning of sound systems practically, right?
I like that you touched on lighting, Marcel, because before the Genesis funded Verilight, okay, there was we call it a metamorphosis. I don't know.
Yeah.
Show lights. Eric Pierce in the 70s. I was working with Tasco back then, formerly MEH, Marshall Equipment Hire. There's another story. And they put together the lighting rig for the ELO tour. And there was the spaceship. And the spaceship, the truss configuration it's all telestage truss. It was aluminum truss, sort of triangular truss, aluminum. That was where we first saw the 6-lamp bars with the sucker pegs on them. That innovation right there made a huge change. In fact, I bought my Supertramp rig was show lights, Eric Pierce, and he had these great, these dimmers, Oldham dimmers. We even had, to keep it lightweight, we had aluminum 4-aught, which was later outlawed. But that caused such a stir here in the US that when Tasco came over here, I got Delicate together, LSD came out of the back of Tasco. We all use, and then you've got show lights, and I know you've got, I think it was Super Mick and some others. And we were cleaning up, and there was PEPS, it was called, the Professional Entertainment Production Society was formed, and I caught wind of this convention that was going on in Santa Monica. And so I thought, well, that'll be fun to attend. So I put the word out, so all us Brits and such go down there, and but the schedule kept changing. And we were in the bar, kind of a bit puzzled as to why they were changing this seminar to something else. And Patrick Stansfield came in and said, okay, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, guys. This convention is all about how do we get our business back from the tea bags. The principals there was Obi, Bob C., Jim Moody from Sundance Lighting. It was McManus from the East Coast. They're all trying to figure out how they're going to get their business back from the tea bags. That innovation there was tremendous. Everybody got on it. Later, Marshall, as left Electrotech with Colin, one of the first things he did, I think it was he went to Korea and had them making par cans, and he was bringing them in the container, and they sold like hotcakes. And then he came up with the 6-lamp bar with the center socket pegs all wired up for you, and that got TMB off the ground. So all that happened before we saw the Vari-Light. And
Crazy.
Marcel, now here's one that puzzles me a bit. Early on with the moving light business, you go to LDI, and it was Jack Kelly was the distributor, and he had Clay Packy.
Right,
and
Group 1.
Look at this stuff, and it was amazing. But nobody used it. It was
discos only.
The Sharpies came out that anybody gave a damn about Clay Packy. And yet years and years and years before, I always thought Clay Packy had this fantastic package.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, High End were involved with Clay Packy and decided they were going to do their own thing.
Yeah, they were one of the distributors.
Probably told you that one, I don't know.
Yeah, no, of course he did. Yeah. No, he I mean they were the distributor for Clay Packy at one point.
Yeah.
And they pretty much just fixed some of the things that Clay Packy needed to, and they made it a lot less expensive. And, they came out with the IntelliBeam 400 and then the 700 after that. And, again, great stories, because at the time, nobody would ever use a moving mirror light on a rock and roll show, right?
Yeah.
And it was actually Chaz, another fellow countryman for you, Chaz Harrington, who put him out on Dire Straits and changed everything. It was like it became suddenly very acceptable to put IntelliBeams on a rock and roll rig.
I remember the high-end thing. I had Yanni was my client, and he was about to embark on his tour. He was doing shows at the Taj Mahal and the Palace, whatever, in China, and he was looking for a high-end rig, studio spots, studio wash, and Marshall was a distributor locally, and he actually stepped back and allowed us to become a dealer.
Oh wow!
And so that high-end product really kick-started us. We had the Turbo Race and we had the Cyber Lights to follow. But by then it was everyone's game, wasn't it? I mean, I remember buying Komar fixtures and a big, nice moving lights, but there was no service, so that they disappeared. You know all those stories.
I do. I do. I was involved in many of those stories, so I know them all too well.
Big disappointment for me was I bought a high-end, I'm trying to remember what the fixture was called now.
X-Spot?
X-Spot. Yeah. Okay.
It was right after the Studio Spot and Studio Color and Studio Beam.
I only had it like 3 months, X-Spots. And then the Mac 2000 came out.
Oh, it just crushed it.
Wanted an X-Spot.
Killed the X-Spot. The X-Spot was big and ugly and not very bright, and it was just it was a flop. It was such a flop.
Well, that taught me a lesson. Don't buy what you think. You've got to wait and see which way the market goes. Otherwise you're just sticking your neck out if you're just going to just jump in deep end.
I don't know that anybody saw that Mac 2000 coming, though. I remember when they launched it at LDI, and I was just like, whoa, this thing's going to do some damage, and it really did. I mean, it just completely took over the market. It had companies scrambling pretty good.
Yeah, so I had the wrong one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hey, no. But the high end for me, I mean, when we became dealers back, you had to go to Austin, and I spent 3 days there or something at school.
Yeah.
I had to learn because I represented the product, my company. I had to know everything about it. So I'm learning about rare earth and God knows what.
Yeah, because I really need to know this, right? Yeah.
One funny thing happened there. Robert Mokry, you know Robert, I think.
Of course, very well.
Oh, right. He was the guy who sold me the Comars. Robert's there with high end. And he says, have you got a minute? I said, yeah. He says, follow me. So we go around this little warehouse. He says, I developed a new product. And I thought, okay, well, let's see what Robert's got to offer here. We walk in, he fires it up. He says, get a load of that. So he's got a smoke machine, and it's putting out what smells like absolute pure marijuana. He says,
That's Robert. Or that was Robert. Yeah.
Yeah. Think it'd be big on festivals. I'm not sure
Oh my
the
God.
market for it, Robert.
That's
Might
hilarious.
end up in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were. I'm not going to keep going on. They were fun.
Robert used to like his weed. He definitely did. He quit a few years ago, right? He completely quit smoking weed. He's off of it completely. I don't even think he drinks anymore either. He's gone healthy.
Imagine him straight. No, I'm only kidding. Robert's one of those luminary figures for me.
Yeah, he's a good
lots of
dude.
fun.
Robert's a good guy. We lost Craig recently, and that was a bummer because they were sort of the partners in crime when you visited High End. Craig and Robert. So
Yeah.
you know that Wiseman and I started working for High End the same day in 1996 or 7. I think 1997.
I met Wiseman, I think, when he was pushing Comar out of Obi's.
Yeah.
I think Obi's had the exclusive back then, and you had to go through Wiseman to get a rental.
Yeah.
That's a flashback. But sorry, I interrupted you there.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Everybody's got a Wiseman flashback because you got to kind of shake your head a little bit to try and remember it because you might have been under some sort of influence at that moment.
Are you kidding?
I don't know.
No. He was. How do we put it? If it was an industry gathering, like we used to have the performance magazine thing, and everybody would know when he arrived back in the hotel.
Yeah, that's funny. A cloud followed him. Yeah. Well, I talk to him almost daily at this point, and he's healthy and happy and really doing super well. He quit at the right time because he wouldn't be with us today if he didn't. And he actually told some really good stories on the podcast where he hit bottom and had to borrow money from his parents to go to rehab, and thank God he did because I think that was 27 or 28 years ago or something, and he wouldn't be with us today if he didn't do it. So what was do you remember your second tour after that one where you were the drum tech?
Yeah. I was in the Marquee Club in London on Wardour Street. And the guy comes up to me and he says, "Are you a roadie?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Can
Well,
you
yes,
start
I am."
Monday?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "Who's the band?" And he said, "It's Genesis." And this is with Peter Gabriel. So this is 73. And I was off on a European run with Genesis, setting up drums with for Phil. And,
wow.
And carrying a lot of junk. They had a lot of scenic elements, and you didn't have so much you didn't have stage hands then. You had to lug it in yourself and set it up. So it was an experience.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I absolutely loved that. I loved Phil, and he was one of these musicians who couldn't sit still between tours. He and Peter Banks from Flash, and so there were bands like there was Brand X was his, and he played with another band called Zucks and the Radar Boys, and I'd pick them up and we'd go off to the venue, and they were unannounced. They were like a super group, and they would go on first. They just wanted to play. And
Yeah.
so the people next door in the pub, and there's suddenly, you won't believe who's on stage, you know, and that was Phil. He just wanted to keep working. He loved playing.
That's awesome.
Smashing guy. All the Genesis guys were nice people.
Yeah.
It
I mean,
wasn't- I didn't stick with them too long.
Yeah.
I was living in South London, over Hammersmith Bridge, a place called Barnes. My greengrocer, Willie Fife, was a good friend of John Lord. And John Lord had just been very successful with Deep Purple, and he'd now bought a nice big country house out in Berkshire, and wanted a hand moving. So Willie and I helped John move out to Sonning in Berkshire. And while I was there, one of John's friends came up to me and he said, "Are you a roadie?" Yes, I am.
It's a theme.
And-
It's a bit of a theme.
And yeah, I said, "Who's the artist? What are you looking for?" He said, "Well, I need two guys, one to take care of the band and one to take care of the artist." I said, "Who is this?" He said, "It's a gentleman, Leo Sayer." So I now owe Paul one, so I called Numo. "Hey, Numo, got a tour for us. What do you want to do? Front of house? I beg your pardon, you want to take care of the band or you want to take care of the artist?" No brainer. So he was Leo Sayer's personal. And so we did quite a few tours with Leo Sayer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And what was fun was in 74 and I think 75, we did a lot of 1 week in a city. We did a week at the Bottom Line. We did Denver, was oddly enough, it's called Ebbetsfield. The Boarding House in San Francisco, the Troubadour in LA, Paul's Mall in Boston. And I really enjoyed that. You can imagine. We were in Memphis for a week at Lafayette's, a club. And if you walked through their kitchen, you walked into the kitchen of the TGI Fridays, right in the early days when it was a more of a sawdust type burger joint. So that was fun because all the bar people were ready to go and have fun after work. So I loved that for a week. And then the same thing happened in Nashville. The Exit Inn was next door to TGI Fridays. So touring was a lot of fun. Hard work, good fun.
Yeah. So was that all luck? Like, was that all were you just a really good worker and people came looking for you? Or was it just luck you were always in the right pub when somebody was looking for a roadie?
Maybe it was my big afro.
You think?
No, I was hanging out at the place. Well, it's no good sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring. You know, we didn't have email or anything. You can just put it out there. If you wanted a roadie, you'd go see where they went drinking. So they went drinking at the Ship, the Shas, the Marquee, and the Speak. And if you did 4 of those in a row, you probably should be arrested. Because the Speakeasy went till the early hours of the morning. In fact, the Speakeasy it's in a song by The Who. Drink easy, pull easy, speak easy, keep your band together with rotor sounds, strings. That was the Who sellout. They mentioned the Speakeasy because that was where all the bands went after the shows. So it was a big thing with us roadies that when you finished your show, if you were in, everybody knew where the other guys were playing. So it was always a race back to the Speakeasy. So if you were playing in Birmingham, you wanted to get there before the guys who were playing in Leicester. Or if the guys from Manchester beat you, you were most embarrassed. So everybody would go and have a drink at the Speakeasy before they went home to bed to get up again the next morning to go back almost to the same place they were the day before. We didn't get hotels, so it was never far enough. different today. So Speakeasy was a big place there.
So it's just basically right place, right time. Like if you wanted the gigs, you hung out at those places.
Yeah, that's where we that was the drinking hole.
Yeah.
If you wanted to find crew, that's where you went.
Yeah. And so by now you decided that this is my life. I'm a roadie. This is what I'm going to do, or were you just?
There's a whole heck of a lot of trial by fire because what happened, like with Flash, was Paul took care of Numo took care of the back line. I took care of the drums. Paul left because the band weren't going to pay him more than what they were paying themselves. So he left, and I'm left now. I'm the guitar roadie as well, and I haven't got a clue. So quickly, I've got this pedal board as well that was custom built by Pete Cornish on Wardour Street, and it needs servicing from time to time. So it's crazy. I'm in the Yellow Pages trying to find a place where you can look at a custom built pedal board that this electrician guy has never heard of in his life. There was crazy demands on you.
Yeah.
When I went to Leo Sayer, I now meet the infamous B3, the Hammond B3 and the Leslie cabinet.
Boy.
And I'm looking at this going, what the hell is this?
Yeah, it's a monster.
In the deep end, you know. So I was heavy into doing all the back line. And I was down in Australia, and the monitor guy wasn't getting it together, and I made a foolish mistake of stepping up and made some adjustment to which suddenly I was now the Leo Sayers monitor engineer.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that's a mistake.
Well, you know, again, that's a theme, though. Like a lot of people who come on my podcast, it's a theme. It's like, just say yes and figure it out. You know, yeah, I know how to do. Of course I know how to do that, you know, and you figure it out. It's not like there was a lot of experts back then, you know?
Yeah. I was fortunate. I worked with some great people, great engineers, who were, as I say, were very, very helpful. I think I got on well with musicians. I made a point of being attentive, especially with monitors. Stand behind the lead singer, listen to what he's listening to, check what's coming off the stage, try and work it out for him. That it was only when I got into Delicate going that I had more of a free hand, and I was like touring with Harp in '83, '4, and '5. But I just realised that trying to get the vocal levels out of the floor monitors that we had at that time was kind of hopeless, and you couldn't pump the side fills too hard, or you were annoying other band members. So I developed a box that I flew, because you couldn't find all there was full range boxes. I didn't have a box I could buy that I could hang out there from a truss, so I had to build it. I used a Martin filler shave, which is a 2x12 that had a bass bung, horn loaded, that and a couple of big 2-inch drivers next to it. Hung those boxes, focused down on the artist, and I was home and dry.
Oh, interesting.
You know?
I'd never seen anybody do that, I don't think, like flown monitors like that at the front.
I think I did something similar. I did 2 different designs over the years that I was mixing monitors. You just take a 12-inch truss, make sure your hang is not interfering with the downstage lighting truss, and fly these cabinets where your downstage, where your vocalists are. And you can crank the hell out of it without any feedback, and you're not just covering that area directly by the mic stand, you're getting a little bit of spread out onto the stage. But this is all, now it's in-ear monitors, so that's the get
Interesting.
Out of jail now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's still a lot of people who use floor monitors who don't like in-ear monitors, as you know. But so tell me, how did the Supertramp thing happen? Like I've heard stories, or I should say the Delicate thing. How did the Delicate thing happen? Yeah.
Okay. Supertramp 101. Okay.
Yeah.
I toured in Australia with Spy Matthews as production manager. Spy, uh, 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 really, really good guy, very good at his job. Um, and God, it's hard not to go off at a tangent here. I'll try and stay focused
No,
on
go
your,
for
your
it. Go
question
for
here.
it. We got time.
So I'm working I'm back at Tasco, sound company, and which, funny enough, is about a quarter of a mile from where I'm sitting now. I
Yeah.
moved them out here in 1978, but we'll pick up on that in the next hour or two. Just kidding. So I'm at Tasco. I get a phone call. It's Spy Matthews. Hey, I'm out with Supertramp. Okay. He said, these guys have bought their own arena sound system, and they're not really proficient in handling a union crew. They've basically been in theaters prior to this. So can I come on board? Now, I'd got background. I'd worked with Tasco with flown PAs. Just basically, I long finished the 77, 78 tour with KISS. And so I was happy to go out there. I was the new boy. They weren't exactly enthralled that, oh, he's Spy's boy. But I got on quickly with everybody, got them off, and they were in good shape. And when we finished the Breakfast in America tour in 1979, the band were now millionaires. And they're talking about 2 or 3 year break. So I'm looking at this, I'm going, wow, what's the deal here? Well, they've got their own sound system. So I went to management, said, how about if I start a production company and your guys can be partners, and you don't pay retainers, you don't pay for warehousing, you don't pay for equipment insurance. What's your thoughts? And they went for it. So
What an interesting idea.
now what was happening with Supertramp was everybody started at 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Nobody got to stay on the bus or sit in the crew room or whatever, catering. So the drum roadie, still a drum roadie then, would do audio until the stage was ready for him, lights were up. Patrick Ampey was the guitar roadie, he worked lights. And so all these backline guys were working sound and lighting. And so when I started the company, the guys who weren't going to go off and work with Roger in this studio, I'm working with Rick in his studio, I'm going with John Helliwell to build his studio. All the old guys decided they were going to stick with the musicians, and Spy said, you'll never get this off the ground, mate. So he took off to Australia. So I found a warehouse in Beverly Hills, the old Wonderlow factory, and I was able to rent that premises. And so when the gear came back in the beginning of January 1980, 45 years ago, last January,
Wow.
we offloaded the containers straight into the warehouse there, and it was now up to me. So
Supertramp owned the gear.
Yeah, but
And-
it's better
and
than
you
that. It's better than that. It's better
Yeah.
than that, Marcel. During the tour, payments to Eric Pierce at Showlights were getting a little bit behind. So the manager did a deal with Eric and said, I'll pay you extra money on top of what I owe you, and we own half the gear, half the lighting rig. Okay, so I've now got a lighting rig that's the band own half. Nobody's
Wow.
quite sure which half. Okay, well, right away, Jim Moody calls me from Sundance. He wants lights for John Denver. Electrotech call me. They've got George Benson. They need lighting. Obi's calling. He wants dimmers and other cabling and stuff for the Beach Boys. I've got Tasco now, who are my allies. They're looking for gear. So Eric calls and says, I've got to come and pick up my plant. That was his term for the gear. I said, well, hang on, mate. We've got it in bits at the moment. We're sorting it out. Another month goes by, and after a while, he calls up. He says, all right, I'm sending a truck. And I said, Eric, don't send a truck. I've got a check for you. By the skin of my teeth, I had enough money to buy the rest of the lighting.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah,
what a
the
story.
lights were the first thing that went out the door. That's really answers the question, I think, of that transition from, oh, by the way, end of March, Spy calls up. He said, I've had second thoughts. You seem to have cut this thing off the ground. I said, yeah. He said, I want in. I said, well, let me think about this. He said, what if I bring you Little River Band, sound and lights? And I said, come on in. And Little River Band were very hot at the time.
Yeah.
And we went off. We were playing. Sometimes we were playing college football stadiums and all sorts of venues. So it's a great start for the audio. We'd already been doing a few shows. My first shows were with the Clash in 1980 at the beginning of the year, and it was odd because we're totally different cultures. You know, this was supposedly the punk period, and I got the best accolade ever. I got Joe Strummer, the singer, came up to me at the end of the last show, and he said, "Not bad for a bunch of hippies." And that was good. And then, shall I carry on here, Marcel? Because
yes, please. I love this story.
Okay, segues into a call I get from England. The Knack are going on tour, My Sharona, and the two engineers are from Concert Sound in England. So they come over, we do the tour, and everything's great. And then I get a phone call from Barry Marshall. Barry Marshall is martial arts, a big promoter in England. But he was formerly the manager for the band, the Man Band in Wales. And when the Man Band was going, he bought a PA. The Man Band fizzled, but he had a PA, so he started a PA rental company. And it took off. He called me to say, look, let's do some trading, you know? And I said, I'm good for it. So he sent me, I think, the Pretenders, and I sent him INXS. He sent me Dire Straits. I sent him Supertramp. So I'm getting on really well now with the Brits, and the word is out there in Good Britain that we're the go-to company, you know, super small company with a big name.
Yeah.
Spy, on the other hand, with Little River Band, has got this Aussie thing going. So then we get INXS, come on over. They were opening for Adamant at Long Beach Arena, and they'd heard of us, and they drove up. They knock on the door, at the warehouse in the valley here. She says it's a band at the door. Their name is INXS. And they're from Australia. I said, okay, go down to the off-license, the liquor store, get a case of Foster's, and we'll see where we go with this. That was the beginning of a great relationship with the band. After INXS came probably, Crowded House, Midnight Oil, Men at Work came over. So we were doing great now. We've got the Brits calling us constantly, and we've got the Aussies calling us constantly.
Amazing.
And we're knocking these sound and lights tours out the door. It's just
amazing.
Remarkable. We started in 1980 with one rig. By 85, I had Little River Band out doing sheds. I had Dire Straits in arenas, and I had Supertramp in arenas. How I pulled that off, I have no idea whatsoever.
That is incredible.
Lighting rigs. I didn't have the lighting rig on Dire Straits, but I did on Supertramp and Little River Band. That's where I got to, with Dire Straits, got to meet Chaz and work with Chaz Harrington.
Yeah.
So yeah, things took off pretty quick there, Marcel.
So did Supertramp take back their sound system at some point, or did you
No,
just
by
pay them out for
1980
whattever was left?
No, 1983. I'd done so many upgrades with consoles, amplifiers, equalizers, just you name it. I put that on as a rental list, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the tour, it was a wash.
Yeah.
So I ended up after '83 owning the rig entirely.
Oh, I see.
But most
Interesting.
of the stuff that I replaced was it had very little value. In fact,
Yeah.
The amplifiers at the time were called Midas blocks. We know the Midas Martin, Midas making consoles. Well, they made amplifiers. I've got one that we use as a stand for our plant pot. It's a massive, great block, metal block with 4 250-watt amplifiers in each corner, and you built them like bricks, and so they were gone. New amps, Soundcraft Series 4 console for monitors. I'm not sure how we put. I know it was a little hand to mouth, and everything was always put the money back in. We started off at $200 a piece. When the guys who said they wanted to be with Delicate, found out that all I was going to give them was $200 a piece a week, they were a little bit downhearted. But some of them had walked away with $10,000 of bonus from the Supertramp, who were very
right.
generous. And talking about generosity, after a couple of months, the manager called me up and said, "Smooth, come over to the office." I went over there. He said, "This is from the band. Good luck." And they gave me $40,000.
Whoa, that was real money back then.
In today's market, that certainly was 40 grand, probably up there at about 280 or something. I don't know.
It's real money.
Good luck to you, mate. You've already got the gear for nothing, and this is just a little icing. No, wonderful guys. They're very. I learned about work ethic and such with them. Maybe not work ethic. Everybody started work at the same time on the tour. Everybody had a criteria. You got to give 100%. Didn't matter who you are, what your job was. Give 100%.
Yeah.
I kind of took that. I carried that on initially with Delicate. I wanted everybody on the same salary. I wanted everybody pulling hard. If you just look to the left and right of you and you see everybody working so hard, it's the best incentive in the world.
Yeah, it's a real team.
Still is.
Yeah. So why did you decide to open a sound company in the U.S. versus UK?
I'd been living here since 1976. I started off with, when I was touring with Leo Sayer over here, my sound system came out of New York at that time, and we had an office upstate, and I decided that I was here so much that I was just going to stay. So I stayed for 76 through 70, nearly 78, and then moved to the West Coast where Tasco had opened up a place on the Beechwood lot. That's the old Columbia Studios lot. Which was a mecca back then of sound and lighting companies. They had the SIR is still, I think, down on the Beechwood lot, but we had C-Factor had an office there, Sundance Lighting had an office there, Pirate Sound, INXS cases. They even had their own newspaper that circulated monthly with jobs for roadies, who's with who, what musicians are with what bands, who's on tour with who. I've still got those. Stuart Ross gave me a whole load of copies that I photocopied.
That's fantastic.
There were fun days in the late 70s in LA. I gotta tell you, it's a little story, all right? Can
I'm
we
good.
do this?
I'm good. We've got time, my friend.
All right, one of my good friends is Derek Wilkinson, Wilco. Wilco's always been trying to get this Enterprise roadie off the ground, roadies for a TV show. So we get so close as we're going to actually all meet, and we're going to meet the producer, potential producer. So we go to the Cat and Fiddle, I guess, down on Sunset.
I remember
Walk
it
in the
well.
door, and there's no one there. So we go, yeah, and that was our sign. That was our call sign for back in England, where if you went into a gig or a bar and you wanted to see if your friends were there, you did that. And if you got a response, great. So I go in there, I go, yeah, and in this side room, I hear all the replies. And while I'm sitting in there having a beer and the other guys are arriving, they're all doing the same thing. It wasn't rehearsed. So already the producer's going, this is outrageous, this is fun. So we get in, now there was no script, so we're all sitting around having a free beer and a lunch. And they've got the camera guy working, and the mic keeps popping down, and we're all ignoring it. And then the camera guy goes, stop. He says, I can't hold the camera. I can't stop laughing.
That's funny.
There's so many stories, right? So the producer guy says, all right, fellas, we've been doing this for nearly 2 hours. He says, I thought this was all about sex and drugs and rock and roll, and we haven't even touched on sex and drugs.
Yeah.
And that, to me, tells the story that it was really all about camaraderie. It was all
Absolutely.
about the challenges.
Yeah. I mean, there was some of the other stuff too, but when everybody got together.
Get back to the hotel, the bloody Holiday Inn bar's closed. Everybody's disappeared. You know, the band may be there, or the opening act.
Yeah.
You know, but not us.
Yeah.
No, that was that's bull.
Yeah.
There's stories here and there, but that wasn't our world.
Yeah.
I tell you, man, we were professionals. We didn't know it at the time. Look, here's one for you, right?
Yeah.
Peter Alexander. He's working with Deep Purple. He's trying to get from Yugoslavia into Italy. All right, gets to the border. It's lined up with trucks, all these European semis, right? Border's closed. All right. He's got a show, man. So what does he do? He goes back. He drives towards the border again, and he runs it. He knocks down the barrier, and they open up, and they start shooting the back of the truck. All right, and he gets to the other side, and the Italians are all welcoming. And it was those commitments. Now, the reason I know this is because at MEH, the blue truck, a 5-tonner with a big metal lift gate, had patches in it. And
Covering
I
bullet
asked
holes.
Why the patches?
Oh,
and they said,
my
you
God.
don't know the story of Peter? And there's these little metal patches across the
That's
back of the truck.
fantastic. What a madman. I don't know that I would have tried that. I don't think
not
so.
my cup of tea.
No.
No, but we were fiercely committed to making those shows happen.
Yeah.
And in return, the bands compensated you for that. You see, when Supertramp were compensating the crew, it was because of the sheer dedication and efforts above and beyond. I can think of many instances where we just went through hell to make a show happen. And that happens that was happening everywhere, somewhere, every day.
It's nice when they notice. It's nice when the band notices, because they don't always.
It has nothing to do with the fact that the T-shirts sales weren't declared to the tax man. Couldn't have been, could it? When you're at CNE Stadium doing 2 nights in Toronto at the football stadium, and you look out there and you see these 33-gallon trash bags full of something going into the back of a semi, and a semi where the wall keeps moving towards the back. It's a wall with a door in it and a big lock. Wouldn't have had anything to do with that, I'm sure.
That's wild. That's wild. Wow. I won't even
for that one.
I won't even ask you questions on that one. I'm not going to dig any deeper.
No. The generosity.
Yeah.
It was a two-way deal there.
Yeah.
And that was very much the case.
So, I want to ask you about the evolution of gear. And so if we talked a little bit about lighting, but if we talk about audio, again, you went from stacked to line arrays. Well, stacked, sort of the really old school stacked, like in your face kind of stuff, to like that phase plug kind of when they started using some technology in those boxes, but they were still stacked. And then
I should pull an envelope out. I've got the letters from Dave Martin from Martin Audio with his pencil CADs. Here's Smoother. I'm looking at this concept. What do you think? And yeah, the F2, the Martin F2 was a big breakthrough.
Yeah.
Cabinet. As they would say down south, I'd knock a buzzard off a shit wagon. It was it was a beast. It really was, and it was so well thought out. Modular. Where do you want to go today?
Yeah.
That was that, and then he came up with the W8, which was just a really good sounding box. But never quite got the flying concept together. Again, Clare Brothers had consistently. S4 was by far the most.
Yeah, they owned it.
PA aesthetically. Turbo Sound, they did well with their presentation. After Martin Audio with the W8, then they went to the line array, and I think we've probably gone through. With Martin, we went through about 6 different line array systems. It all ended when the company who were then owned Martin Audio owned DAW, and they spent a whole ton of money to promote the new EAW product and didn't support the MLA product that was out there. And that's why we got rid of our MLA. That's why SES got rid of their MLA. We lost the support. They had the best cabinet by far. Today, it's technology. It's way and above anything.
Yeah, I've heard other people say that.
They screwed up, you know.
Yeah.
And we seen that. You know, we saw Arvid. Everybody had an Arvid console. Everybody had an Arvid profile. Where are they today? No support. Explain it. It's a puzzle. It's an absolute puzzle how you can be so successful and lose it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You get greedy. I mean, I think in the line array world, you've got L Acoustic and D&B, and then everybody else kind of chasing behind them. And those two have become such big companies. And so you've got some smaller companies that are trying to be aggressive to go after a little piece of the pie. And it's just not that easy to do. You know, once somebody owns a market like that, it's tough.
Well, then again, you think they own the market, you know, until such. But as you mentioned it, everything evolves.
It does,
There'll be another super something.
I
miss the days, you know, where it was Chas Brook with Brooksire, and I think it was Ian or something with Ian Wallace, or Ian something with Avo lighting.
Yeah.
There were these single guys, you know, developed that product in those early days.
Yeah.
Dave Martin's an example, and there's so many others. And I mentioned, perhaps I'm too biased because I mentioned all of the English, but the same things were going on here in the US.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's like everything else, is massive corporate.
But I think at the end of the day, like what you said with Martin, it's still where we're at, is you got to take care of your customers. You know, if you take care of your customers and you treat them really well, even if it's, you know, 3% less good than the competitor, they don't care because
I always try to impress on people here at Delicate this. Service comes first.
Yeah.
Service, all right? And execution. The show has got to be perfect. And the money comes later. This isn't about the money. This is about service and execution. If you can get those two and stay on top of those two, the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally true. You're not wrong. I think at the end of the day, do what you say you're going to do and do it really well. Do it to the best of your ability, and you're going to make a lot of friends out there. You know.
Yeah. You bought on something, Marcel.
Go ahead.
Friends.
Yeah.
You know, the important thing I learned right from day one, I needed friends. I needed other companies I could go to. I needed to be everybody's friend. I didn't want to be the enemy. we had a little thing going in the 80s and early 90s, and it was honor amongst thieves. We didn't steal each other's projects. Now it's a lot of sales guys who just got to make their numbers, and they don't give a rat's ass about it.
Yeah, it's true.
But friends, still important today to have
Yeah.
friends who will call you for support, and you can call them for support.
Well, it's been a
absolutely
theme
essential.
through your career because you were talking about, swapping bands. We'll take, I don't remember who it was. We'll give you INXS, or we'll take INXS and we'll give you this one or whatever.
Barry Marshall. By the way, he's Paul
Yeah.
McCartney's man now.
Oh, is he?
Here's a funny thing. Talk about a full circle. So my son ends up working with Paul McCartney as his teleprompt operator. My daughter works for Negearth in West London.
Yeah.
Okay, somehow or other, I get a photograph from London. It's Barry Marshall in the middle, and my two kids either side, and it's Barry says hello, and this is Barry from 1980.
That's hilarious. That's amazing.
And here he is with, he came
You had to
into
have loved
rehearsals.
that photo.
Yeah, he came into rehearsals with McCartney, and he says, "I hear Smooth's son's working for us," and I had nothing to do with it, absolutely nothing. And the sooner my son Spencer joined them, he said, "Oh, there's 4 guys here I'm working with, they're all your old pals,
That's funny.
So he was made at home, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It's got to be interesting being Smoother's son when you're out there on the road and running into some of the old geezers and stuff. Smoother.
Look, I just emailed Chaz's son. Chaz
Yeah.
Herring's son over at Zenith.
Yeah.
the other
You're part
day.
of the same
Just
same
said, "Hey, yeah."
business now. Yeah.
Yeah, and then out on McCartney, it's, if it's not the original guys who are with the crews, their son is involved somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's the same, with I like Gallagher staging here, and Joe Junior. And
Yeah.
I love it.
It's cool. Yeah. Well, and my son, on the other hand, has no interest whatsoever in the business that we're in, and that's all good. Like I'm totally okay with that. Like I keep telling him, if you ever want an adventure, I'll connect you to some people, and you can go out there and find an adventure. But go do what you're gonna do. I've been meaning to ask you because I don't think I know the answer to this, but your name, where'd it come from?
Oh, I'm the smoother mover.
Is that it?
Yeah.
It's that simple?
No. You asked. I'm going to show you. Hang on.
Okay. Go get it. We've got props, people. We have props coming this time. I like it. Uh-oh. The Smoother Mover. That's hilarious. That's funny. So the name came from that, or that came from the name?
I was out on tour with Kiss, and they
Okay.
stuck behind a semi, and it's Smyth van lines. So they go, "Hang on, Smyth." That's Chris Smyth, me.
Yeah.
So next day they're going, "He's the smoother mover," and I got stuck with being the smoother mover for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And that later was abbreviated to just Smoother. So when I started Delicate, and I'm calling people, and I'm going, "Oh, it's Chris Smyth here. Is John available?" "I'm sorry, he's busy." I call back another couple hours later. "Tell him it's Smoother." "Why didn't you say so?"
And they're on the phone.
And,
Yeah.
my wife said, "You nicknamed you Smoother when I met you. Stick with it." And it's hard to lose that now. When you're 76 years old and you're introduced to somebody, "This is Smoother." Huh?
Yeah. That's funny. What a silly name, sir.
I was introduced to Margaret Thatcher, and she's Smoother. That's a rather peculiar name. Yeah, but people don't forget.
So is Margaret, ma'am.
Yeah, that's right. And I told her I was a Lincolnshire lad, right from where she comes from.
Yeah. That's awesome. So
have I kept you up long enough there?
yeah,
mate?
no, hang on a second. So hang on a sec. You've worked with bands, managers,
Yeah.
accountants, and now attorneys. Which is the toughest?
Which is the tough one.
Yeah.
Attorneys don't bother me because you set your dog on their dog.
Yeah.
Accountants,
Attorneys for me are always at the bottom of the pile. I'll tell you that one.
well, we became this litigious society about in the beginning of the 2000s.
Yeah.
Accountants came started off, the bands ran the show in the 70s. If you lost the rent-a-car, they would tell the manager, get over it. All right. In the 80s, the managers started to take back control.
Yeah.
In the 90s, we started running into accountants. And then as we got into the late 90s, we started hitting the serious litigation.
Yeah.
And so, but now it's sort of all found itself. And,
Yeah.
and for the most part, nobody reads anything; they just sign it anyway.
Yeah.
As
It's
long
kind
as
of
a
true,
copy
isn't
of
it?
Insurance, that's it. COI, off we go.
You know, the funny thing about all of that is, like, I went up against one of the world's largest companies because they stole a trademark from me. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. It matters how deep your pockets are to fight that battle. And
Let's not talk government right now. Let's keep politics out of this.
yeah.
Moving on.
This wasn't the government, though. This was one of the largest companies in the world that I had a lawsuit against. And they not only did they decide to defeat me, they decided that they were going to try and crush me completely, put me out of business, murder me, whatever it was. They just wanted me to be squashed like a little bug. And I just had to give up. Even though I was right, they were wrong. The final judgment was, you're right, they're wrong, but they're not going to give you any money. And
how often the case?
It's brutal, but when you've got, when you walk into a hearing or a mediation or whatever, and you've got your one attorney that you're paying $400 an hour, and they've got like 6 attorneys that are each getting $2,000 an hour, and then they've got a bunch of these pretty girls carrying briefcases for them, and it's wild.
I learned really fast. Lawsuits are crapshoots. They tell you that.
Yeah,
that's true. Now, for Delicate, up until the live events chapter.
Yeah.
We had the same attorney for years and years, and he'd say, Smithy, you are my oldest customer.
Yeah.
And he said, you're also the worst. You never go to court.
Yeah.
And because most of these things can be avoided. Obviously, you couldn't. You were the side swipe there. And I think that's really important to stay away from it.
I agree.
It's only ends in it's disappointment. So we've had our lawsuits. I get a guy who says, I was setting up a Yanni show, and this light hit me on the head, and it was their fault, and then I've got to be careful here. But the guy ended up, the insurance company paid him $1 million. Out of court.
Yeah.
I've had the hearing once, concert, my ears shot.
Yeah.
And she's, but really, it's avoiding them.
Yeah.
It's avoiding them. I'd go to K-Rock which would be Irvine Meadows back then, and I'd have a big bag of earplugs, and I'd go up to the people who were closest to the stacks, and I'd say, guys, look, if you kids, you want these, use them,
But that wasn't cool. That wasn't cool back then to put earplugs in.
Nobody. I'm very conscious about what we're doing to the kids' hearing.
Yeah, it's true, man. I know that I've lost a lot of my hearing over the years, but being a musician and then being in the industry and going to concerts myself as a fan, even, I've lost a ton.
You know the story here. I think I got gold albums, platinum albums, and $6,000 hearing aids. Are you listening to this, Gene Simmons? Gene, are you listening to this? Or have you got your earplugs in?
Yeah.
After a year and a half, Paul Chevalier, his roadie, runs out and says, "Gene, you forgot your earplugs. I'd spent so much time trying to get that guy's vocal going. The bottom end's coming out the side film. My trousers are flapping. And this guy's is giving me a hard time. He's giving me a lot of tongue because he wants more level, and he's
wearing earplugs.
Earplugs.
That's funny.
For you, Gene.
That's crazy. Well, fortunately for you, he doesn't listen. He doesn't listen to my podcast. So, not that I'm aware of anyways. I did have Doc McGee on. I had Doc McGee on at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah. With some great artists.
Yeah.
Had some fun times. But back then, the worst job you could ever have was being the monitor engineer.
Yeah. Do you know Jim Yakubuski?
Oh, no, I know. I know.
Yeah.
It was a Tasco A1.
So
I didn't work with him that I recall.
I knew him in Canada. He was doing sound for a lot of the bar bands that were up there when I was playing, and when I owned a music store up there as well, and we were good friends. And he got a gig, I think it was with DB Sound out of Chicago, doing monitors for Yngwie Malmsteen. Could you imagine that gig? I mean, it was just constant.
I took care of Yngwie for a couple of tours.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. There's some stories behind all of that.
He said he would just look to the side of the stage and be like, "I'm gonna kill you," just this look. And there was so much guitar coming out of every monitor on stage that nobody could tell what they were doing.
No,
because guitar was just everywhere. He had these huge speakers for his guitar amp, and then he had guitar coming out of the floor monitors as well. It was just like,
well, I happen to have his guitar in the warehouse.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's 20 foot. All right, it's 20 foot. It's a Stratocaster. It was made as a prop for the tour.
Wow.
Okay. At the end of the tour, management said they wanted the guitar. The guy who built it said he wanted his other half of the payment. So between the two of them, they couldn't decide whose it was, and it's still here. 20-foot Stratocaster.
That's
full
hilarious.
Model, not just talking a cutout.
Yeah.
It's the whole frets, everything.
Yeah. Well, that's funny.
Yeah,
How long have you had it? How long has it been sitting there?
That would have been about from 84.
Oh, it's been there for like 40 years.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Have you ever thought of maybe getting rid of it?
Yeah. There was his manager at that time was a guy named Andy Truman.
Yeah.
And Andy's a chapter in itself. Quite a character. Formerly tour manager for ELO, started Jet Productions, which I was part of.
Yeah.
Before Supertramp called, and there's some stories in all of that.
So, Smoother, you've said follow your nose. What does that look like today, like in practice for someone starting out today? Someone said that you said follow your nose in business, in this business.
Yeah, just keep, no matter what you're doing, even the guys who are out there with a job, with a front of house engineer or whatever else. You always look for opportunity. If you've been on the road for a long time, you might want off. If there's an opportunity where you could be the in-house guy at this venue or that venue, you're going to follow your nose. I think it applies to every one of us.
Yeah.
Go where the instinct goes. Don't look straight ahead. Look left and right.
Yeah.
Look for opportunities. Above all those, don't do anything you don't enjoy.
Yeah.
I try to get everybody who comes to work here to enjoy coming to work, not just happy to go home. In fact, sometimes I want them to, I know they feel they'd rather be here than sitting in the traffic.
Yeah.
So if I can get that kind of enthusiasm where they want to be with their pals, the people they're working with, then I've done my job, because now I've got productivity, I've got a happy house. People who come in, like band engineers, to come and set their consoles up, or lighting guys check over the programming and such, they like to be in a happy house. And,
that makes so much sense.
So I advocate that. it's so important.
Well, on a similar topic, and I promise this is the last question I'm going to ask you, unless you have another story you want to share. So a lot of times when, call it private equity or call it an acquirer or call it someone who's doing a company roll up or whatever, a lot of times when they put these businesses together, founders either don't survive or choose not to stay. And yet you're still there. And I actually spoke with Stephen Vitale a couple weeks ago, and he said, Smoother's loving it right now. He's having a great time. And I was a little bit surprised because honestly, I just, you you didn't seem like you intended to continue working forever, but
no.
You seemed quite happy.
No, we had the COVID, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, what, now's as good a time to make a move. So my wife and I moved up to Oregon. We went to Salem. When the pandemic was over, Salem was the same, it was dead. So we moved closer to Portland. That was good. But my wife developed a respiratory issue. And at the end of the day, they said, you got to go where it's warmer. So we came back down here, and I got a call, hey, would you like to, now you're down here, would you like to come in? Because I was already working from home office as a sort of keep an eye on my existing accounts, bit of a consultancy thing.
Yeah.
And I just jumped at the idea because I'm with my work mates, These are, this is a second home.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And
I love that.
All my industry friends, it's hard to walk away from. Now, what live events did is they kept us autonomous.
Yeah.
They didn't try and make it all one big.
Yeah. Which I like.
PRG.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got Zenith and we got Gemini and such and Active and
yeah, they didn't disappear the brands. Instead, they honored and celebrated the brands.
All we have to do is produce.
Yeah.
Right? But we've now got more tools in the toolbox because we've got that inventory, referrals from intercompany.
Yeah.
So so 1 and 1 makes 3.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So why would where's the harm in that?
Yeah.
I don't blame, I can't put the pandemic on Stephen and live events.
Well, you could try.
I can't be just
I think I might have.
The pandemic is the pandemic.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate for me because for 40-something years, I was always put everything back into the company. In the early days, I had partners. I couldn't take more from me, even though I did more, because I had to have parity.
Yeah.
If I wanted a happy camp.
Yeah.
So it was all for the end game for me. Unfortunately, COVID beat me by 3 months.
Yeah.
Just in the having discussions. COVID hit.
I get it, my friend. Trust me. My business got the shit beat out of it during COVID. So, I completely get it. It was a special moment that a lot of people didn't survive. I mean, a lot of businesses didn't survive. People didn't survive too, but let's hope we never go back there. Let's hope it doesn't happen again, ever.
Yeah, I think right now the culture here pretty much as good as it's ever been.
Good for you. Good for you.
Long-serving people here.
Yeah.
I don't want to be corny, but there's a fair amount of love around this place.
Yeah, I've always heard it. Yeah, I've always heard it.
We're in our new facility. We went from 23,000 square feet to about 50.
Good for you.
We're able to actually set up full lighting rigs, and we're able to do things without falling over each other. All this is, it goes back to live events and Stephen for having faith in us and going with that investment. They're not the bad guys.
No. And I wasn't suggesting they were at all. I was just, like I said, I was happily surprised to hear that you were heavily involved and really enjoying yourself. And, that to me says it all. That's meaningful, because usually what happens is these businesses get bought and either the owner retires or the owner gets in a battle with the owner, and
Well, I must say this. Our general manager, Brian Boyd, he came on board with us just before the pandemic.
Yeah, I met Brian.
And he deals more with any sort of rebuff for this and that.
Yeah.
I'm fairly insulated from it. So
Yeah.
I'm nobody's pushing me to be in the office, every day of the week. I'm sometimes working from home office.
Yeah.
Nobody's putting any pressure on me. But then again, the last couple of weeks, I was doing kind of work, days where I was working 8 o'clock till 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
With the projects that I was, working on. We got Coachella going right now. We got a big lighting rig out there with one of the acts. Just came off doing sound lights and video with Danzig. That was my account, working with 3 promoters,
Yeah.
4 bands, 10 crew, 2 trucks, 2 buses, and that was a handful.
Yeah. So is it mostly it's mostly all touring still, or corporate, or
No. I was at Pomona College doing the site survey for graduation, video and audio on that one. Corporate special events.
so it's a nice blend.
Meetings. We do it all.
Yeah.
That's what keeps it fresh.
Yeah.
Guys come off the road and they start working corporate. They're getting time and a half, double time, walking on carpet, and then they're fed up with the 405 freeway every day. They want to go back on the road. So it's a yin yang. It's good.
Yeah.
Good
That's
give
fantastic.
everybody some variety.
Yeah. That's really good. Well, Smoother, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Some great stories, and
Thank you for putting this together, Marcel.
No, thank you so much. I've enjoyed it very much. I love the stories, and if I could keep you all day, I would. We'd keep recording it, but I gotta let you go. Steven told me that you can't keep them all day, Marcel. You know what this guy's costing me? No, he never said that. Thank you, Smoother.
Pal.
All right, man.